What's up, guys? This is the Lululemon Dream Podcast, and I'm Sam, and today we've got a pretty banger episode here. It's a topic that a lot of you may have encountered or may be encountering currently. We don't know, but we're going to dive right into it, and I really feel like this is a topic that needs to be discussed, so we're going to switch on over here. We're going to call this one the promotion trap. Can't take credit for that title. I did find it on LinkedIn. There's a gentleman by the name of Shinar Wood, and if I butchered your name, sir, I'm really sorry. But I saw it on LinkedIn today, and I was like, you know what? That's a great topic for a blue-collar podcast because it's talking about promoting foremen from within and making sure that they're actually ready for the job that they are, the title that they're given. So I'm going to do a little bit of reading here. So forgive me, got that good old Oklahoma education. So it's called Promotion Trap. It says when a good foreman becomes a bad manager. So that right there is a good portion of the reason why I read the rest of this post was because it was just like, bam, just grab me. Cause I'm like, hey, we've all had that one guy that got promoted that really had no business being promoted. So I'm going to read down through here a little bit. It says, if you want to kill a productive crew, promote the foreman before you've ever trained them to lead. And we're going to let that soak in just a little bit here because it's before you've trained them to lead. And I know we've talked about that before on the podcast is, there's people that can take charge, but then there's leaders that will develop a team and create other leaders. I believe there was a statement, and I can't remember if it was someone else on the podcast, but they say that you're not actually a leader until you've created another leader. So we'll dive in. We'll go back into the reading of this post here. Says the crew slows. Okay, so says on Fridays he's your best hand. On Monday he's buried in paperwork, babysitting drama, and getting yelled at for numbers he doesn't control. The crew slows down. He feels like he's failing, and you wonder where your rock star went. So you've got this guy that was great at doing and always got things done, was always Johnny on the spot, was always there when you needed him. And then you promoted him, and then all of a sudden, you're like, "Well, crap, man, where did this guy go? Like he was always someone that I could depend on, and now it's like he's sucking it up." So there's that to think about. So we'll read a little further here. Shinar goes on to say that we'll just say Mr. Wood that's the promotion trap. It says we reward performance and pretend it's the same as readiness. And that's where I was talking about, you've got to make sure that you've trained him to be a leader and that he's able to lead people, that he's able to handle all of the responsibilities and the ins and outs and all the bull crap that comes along with leadership. So, and I know there's a lot of you leads and managers and stuff that are out there that are listening that are probably sitting here, shaking your head. I can hear it from here. So he goes on to say, here's what I've learned the hard way. The work that got you the promotion is not the work that keeps you in the role. A title without training doesn't build leaders. It builds resentment. We're going to come back to that one for sure. Every time you skip grooming the next level, you tax the whole job with confusion and rework. It's another important one to hit. In our world, ready has to mean more than being the best at the craft. And there's a lot of guys that are really good at their craft, and they're great at doing, say mechanicing. They're the guy that no matter what gets put in front of them, they can resolve the problem and they can get the equipment back up and running, or repair the car and get it back out to the customer. That guy is, he's invaluable, but he may not be a great leader. He may not be somebody that can, bring the whole shop together and create that positive environment, that motivation to go forward. And, it just may not be the best for him. So just because he's good at his craft doesn't mean that he's meant to be a leader. So, Reddy can run the day without you in the room. So that's one of those things that, you've got somebody that you think is going to be a great leader. So, when you're gone, how do they do when you're gone? What do they do when you're gone? Are they, pushing the team just the way you would? Are they continuing to meet expectations? Are they hitting the goals and producing the same level of work that you do while you're there? That's a big one there. Reddy can have one hard conversation without blowing someone up. So, do you get that hard question from somebody on the shop floor that says, hey, when is this going to be done? And he can answer it because he's paid attention and he knows what's going on around him. And even the things that aren't directly in his responsibility wheelhouse, maybe he's, just paid attention, or he's asked questions to make sure that he knows what's going on. Reddy can protect this standard when the schedule gets ugly. So that's what I was saying is, whenever things get hard, and I know I'm bad about this myself, it's real easy to let things fly out the window whenever you're on crunch time. And sometimes you have to. You can't avoid it because you're shorthanded, or you've there's different variables out there that sometimes you just can't maintain that standard all the time, and that's understandable. There's things that pop up throughout your career that are gonna cause hurdles, and you're just gonna have to swallow it whole and move forward. So the big thing in here, and this is a real short sentence, it's 6 words. So a promotion shouldn't be a test. Okay, we're just going to sit there and we're going to let that marinate for a minute. We'll give you the promotion shouldn't be a test. Okay, you shouldn't be like, all right, well, I think this guy's ready, so we're going to promote him and see how he does. No, you want to take a good group of guys and have them sharpen it up their resume real quick. Have your guy that you think might be ready to lead promoted, and then watch the rest of the crew leave. And I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but I can tell you that it may not, and it may not happen right away either. It may be 6 months to a year down the road. But if you're not sure that he's ready to lead, or that he can handle it, or she, mind you, sorry, not trying to be sexist here, because there's plenty of women that are out there as well. Make sure that they can handle it. And he gives 3 pointers here for, the practical move for the next 90 days. Okay. Pick one foreman you're thinking about moving up. Okay. So pick that person. Give them one promotion day a week. They run the board. They do the one-on-ones. They handle the one tough call, stuff like that, and see how they handle those situations. Say you've got a critical piece of equipment that's down. Let them run it. Let them handle the communication. Let them handle the interactions with management and the shop floor and stuff like that. And I'm just saying this is my reference. So, say if you're on the job site, let them handle, say, a crane lift or something. Say you're landing equipment on the roof. Let them run the crew. Let them organize it. Let them talk about it. Let them do all of that. And then if they can do that for 90 days, the title is just catching up to reality. So the title is catching up to reality. So it's saying that it's not a I gave you a title and now I expect you to live up to that title. No, this is you have shown that you have the capabilities to be a leader, to be a foreman, to handle those tough situations, the responsibilities, the upset management whenever things don't go as planned, and all of that stuff is an important thing. And every leader is going to encounter it. No matter at what level. If you're just a team lead, if you're a supervisor, if you're a manager, like there's all different levels there, and it depends on your skill set, your interaction, your ability to manage crisis situations. And it's not all just managing crisis situations. Don't get me wrong. There are some easy days, but looking at those easy days too is another opportunity to decide, is this person really a leader? Is this, on those easy days when there's not a whole lot of work or there's not a crisis or something along that lines, what is that individual doing then? Are they just kind of sitting around on their laurels and just hem-hawing around? Or are they finding things that, need to be done, being proactive and tasking, the team with those? Or are they taking those on and showing the team like, hey, this is what we need to be doing? Also, how well does he train other people? What does that individual do when they're put in a situation with someone that maybe doesn't understand all of the processes? What do they do when you put somebody with them? Are they just, keeping their information close to their chest? Or are they sharing that wealth of knowledge with that individual so that someone can replace them at a later time? I've said this before on the podcast, and I say it all the time. You've got to train your replacement. I mean, that's plain and simple. And it's not one of those things to where, you're literally training your replacement so they can fire you. No, the opportunity is you have to train someone to do what you're doing, or else there won't be, it's really hard for upper management to be like, hey, this guy has done such a great job. He's trained someone else to do what he's already doing. Maybe we should give him some new tasks and some new challenges to grow him. And, that's management seeing you and recognizing what you're doing and, tasking you with things outside of your normal work that can help you to grow and to be a better leader or to be a foreman or a manager or something in that respect. So, you've got these real simple little things that you can do, and it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of effort to grow someone else. Spend a little bit of extra time, especially if you've got somebody that's already asking questions about the processes and steps and stuff that are going on. That makes it really easy. But you've also got to look at it as you've got an opportunity in all of those crisis situations to explain it. Now, don't dumb it down to where it's like, you're talking down to everybody else, like, you peasants don't understand what I'm doing, so I'm trying to explain it to you. But, don't use certain terminology that would confuse other people. And I'm trying to think of examples right now, and I'm drawing a freaking blank. But, be open and explain what's going on, and try and communicate thoroughly what it is that you're doing in those crisis situations and why. Because the more understanding that's going on in situations like that, the more support you're going to have. If everybody around you understands what's going on and you're thoroughly explaining what is, the next step, what your process is, what your plan is going forward, then you're going to have a lot more support, because people are going to be able to understand what's going on and what's going forward, And then maybe their skill set can fall into play too. And they're like, oh, hey, this is the next step. I know how to do this. I can help him or her do this. That way they're not having to focus on that, and they can move forward as well and focus on something else that they understand, so that the lead's not tied up in some of the nitty gritty of it, that it's more of a big picture aspect. So the communication is a big factor in all of it. No. A title without training doesn't build leaders, it builds resentment. So you get into those situations to where you've given someone a title, okay, and they're not ready to do it. And you've got all of these guys that have worked with them, especially if it's in one of those scenarios where it's a promoted within kind of deal. Then you have the rest of the crew that has worked with that individual, and now they're like, well, he's terrible at managing people. He's not good at, communicating what the problems are or communicating what we need to do next. I could have done that job. Shoot, Jonathan's terrible at that. If there's any Jonathans out there, I'm sorry, But it's one of those deals that if you don't train them and groom them, I know that was one of those things that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, grooming's a bad word now, okay? But it's one of those things. You don't send somebody you don't want to send your kid to school, the hair all messed up, teeth not brushed, shirt's all a mess and wrinkled and all that stuff. You want them to be presentable because they're a representation of your household. It's no different than putting a lead over a team or promoting someone to a foreman and not training them. They're showing up with messy hair. They got no belt on. Their pants are falling down, and they're doing what they can just to make it through the day without showing everybody their underwear. So if you don't train the people to be in the position, then you're just setting someone up for failure. And then you're going to create resentment within the team. And then that goes back to you promote somebody that's not ready, and then you're going to lose a good crew because they're going to take somebody. They're going to be like, I'm sick of this, man. We had this great lead, and they promoted this ninny, and now we can't, we don't have any good guidance, and, he doesn't know what's going on half the time. So, we're having to do all of it. So what the hell was the point in promoting him if, we could have just stuck with the guy that we had and we'd have been fine. I've seen a lot of that. And it's another thing, too, is to bring someone in from the outside that and there's nothing wrong with a new leadership perspective coming into play. But you've got to make sure that the person that's coming into leadership understands how that department works. Okay, that's another thing too. Something I've seen a lot here in recent years. You have people that are really good at managing, and this goes back to that training them and grooming them and getting them ready for the position. If you have somebody they're really good at managing. Let's see, I'm trying to think of how to do this. You get somebody that's really good at managing, say, a Walmart, all right? And it's you've got customer service aspects of it, which that goes in just about every job because everyone's a customer when you're in some sort of a service industry, whether it's repair or maintenance or what have you. Like, your customers are everywhere. Anytime you interact with someone, they're a customer. So if you get somebody that's used to managing a Walmart for produce, say that, hey, I managed the produce department for 5 years, and it was great. We had a really successful produce department, and that we were the best in the nation. We're the best the best produce department in the entire world. You've never seen a better produce department. You guys just, you just have no idea, okay? It was the greatest. It was the greatest. Okay, there you go. There's your free Donald Trump impersonation. But so you get somebody that's managed the produce department. And you're like, man, they're a great leader. They were really able to unite everybody in the produce department, and it was just phenomenal, Let's put them over maintenance. Okay? So Produce department, you have trucks that come in. You pull the produce off the trucks. You look at what you have on the shelf. You keep the shelves stocked. You check your numbers to see how much produce you need to have so that you don't run out whenever people are buying produce. And that's how you manage it. Okay? And I'm not, and that's just a summation. That's just me making a theory. Okay? So you move into the maintenance department. You take the produce manager and you put them in the maintenance department now. So the produce manager, all he knows is we check inventory, we replace inventory, we make sure that our numbers are good, and that we don't run out of produce. That's great. Maintenance is, you can do that for your parts, and you can manage your parts inventory. You can see, look at your numbers. How many parts do we use on average? How many pieces of equipment do we have? How many are on each equipment? Blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. Okay, so fine. So there you go. We got produce manager, maintenance manager. Now we're in parallel here, okay? When you have a crisis in the produce department, it's not, say you keep running out of produce. Well, it's not the person putting the produce's problem. It's not the person that's putting the produce out on the floor. They're not the problem. The problem is that the produce isn't making it to the person, the employee on the floor, to get it to the customers. Okay, so there's your shortage there. Well, in maintenance, you got a machine that's not producing properly. Well, we can just throw parts at it and bam. All right, it's working now, but it only works for like an hour and then it breaks again. We're like, well, what happened? Why didn't you fix it? Well, I did fix it. Okay, well, it's broke again. So you look at it for a little bit and you find another broken part. You fixed it. Sweet. It's fixed, right? It works for a week. It breaks again. So you're throwing produce at it. You're finding parts. You're getting the parts to the piece of equipment, but you're not actually stopping to look at the big picture. And you've got to look at that big picture in the maintenance aspect of it, is because don't get me wrong, there are times, and I've got plenty of things that I've had to do in my career, that there's a fix it right, and then there's a fix it right now. And sometimes you just have to do the fix it right now. Okay, there's no option, because we've got to get these widgets out. We have so many that have to be out on this date, so you fix it right now, and then it's great until you can get the correct fix and you find the root cause of what caused that failure, and then you resolve it, and then you prevent it from happening in the future. That's the difference between and I guess really there's not a whole lot of difference. Now, sitting here talking about this scenario and thinking about it, there's really not a whole lot of difference between those, but it's the ability to step back and look at the bigger picture and how everything works together and fits together. That's part of leadership. That's one of those qualities that, Mr. Wood was talking about. You step back and you look at it and you go, all right, I see that bolt is falling out, but why did that bolt fall out? Or I see that I'm out of carrots. Why are we out of carrots? Did we not order enough carrots? Was that bolt not tight enough? There's those scenarios that, you place your potential foreman or your potential lead in those situations and see how they handle it. And they may fall on their face, and there's not a thing wrong with that. Everybody has to make those mistakes to learn. Mistakes, I saw another post today, too, that was one of those, a guy had won an award, and he says, I want to dedicate this award to the losers. And he paused there for a moment for everybody to sit around and kind of look at each other and like, oh, my God, did he just say he's dedicating this award to the losers? Wow, that's really kind of harsh. But then he went on to elaborate that losing is the best motivation. Failure is a good motivation to move you forward and to give you that drive to want to reach success more, to work harder to reach success. And it also gives you the opportunity to learn. You know, some of the biggest, some of the things that I have learned the best have been some of my biggest failures. And you know, and a lot of times it may just be because you rush in there and you're panicked and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to fix this right now. Just chill. Just take a little bit. And don't worry about fixing it right now. Worry about what caused the problem. And then worry about, okay, can I fix it right now to get us by until I can get the permanent solution so that it keeps us going for even longer? So anyhow, he dedicated the award to the losers because it was, you know, he said that what he's learned the most and has helped him the most would be his failures. So you've got to put your leadership or your potential leadership or potential foreman in those scenarios and give them that opportunity to fail. Don't set them up for failure, but let them make the decisions and see where they're at. As far as leadership, are they able to move forward? Are they at a point to where they're able to take it on the chin and be like, dang it, I screwed up. I see where I screwed up. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. I see it. I got it. Don't worry about it. We're moving on. So there's that. So there's that respect of it that you've got to get, you know, you've got to give them the opportunity to keep going and to make those mistakes. So I know I've had plenty of opportunities in my career to where I've probably made the wrong decision. Actually, I know there's been some times in my career that I have 100% made the wrong decision. And that wrong decision has taught me a lot. It's a lot of those incorrect decisions have been because I was rushing to a fix it right now scenario and not a fix it right. And I didn't step back and look at the position. I've learned in my career that sometimes a little bit of just patience and stepping back to look at things can save you a lot of hassle in the long run. If you'll just have the patience to, you know, look at the big picture, talk to people, ask questions. You know, you don't have to know everything. You know, that, like I've said in previous episodes, sometimes you just have to know where the answers are. So I'm going to wrap this up right here. You'll get more answers next week if you stick around and you come back then. Until next time, we'll see y'all next week. If you're late, you're lost.